Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Hi there, it's Darrell Scott. You are about to listen to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. We are going to have a good time today. I, it- it's just the interesting thing in doing this show and in talking to artists is the other things that they do. We all think of them as doing nothing but playing music. And don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Um, but when they do things that I think affect people outside of their music, and maybe the music helps in this second job. I'll call it a side hustle for lack of a better term. But today we're going to talk to, I hope I'm going to get this right, Deepak Thettu on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. Deepak, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me,
Not
Daryl.
a problem, man. We're going to talk about music first, but this occupational therapy thing, I, well, we'll talk about that in a little while. So tell me, how did you get to being a guitarist, or as I say, a guitarist?
Well, we got to rewind many, many years back to high school,
Hmm.
where I wasn't really as much of a player as, I'm a child of the 80s, and you couldn't not see guitars and all the music, so much of the music was guitar driven back then. It's actually really interesting when I think back, how much guitar we had, back in the 80s, of all genres too. But so I loved watching MTV and I loved listening to guitar. And a lot of my friends in high school, my close friends, they were all musicians. And so to make a long story short, I really wanted to play, hang with the guys, and one
Hmm.
day. So I was an athlete in high school and was more, playing sports stuff. I played basketball. I had a knee injury when I was a junior, and that kind of like took me out of like really playing like freely and
Hmm.
comfortably. So all my friends, a lot of my close friends were guitar players, and they're like, hey, Deeps, you gotta pick up the guitar. And I had one, but I would never really play it. So that's kind of like how it started, getting it into my hands. And
Hmm.
so that kind of creeped into like senior year in high school, and then the summer between being a senior and college, I started to play a lot more and took some lessons and just playing what was on the radio then and just really just loving guitar um and but then when I went to college I found myself playing guitar like all day long and
Wow.
I think every kid in the dorm that I went to University of Buffalo and there's just a ton of guitar players and I was just playing guitar and I started getting exposed to different styles of guitar. And I remember a friend that I had met who was playing some Larry Carlton. And I
Mm.
was like, Larry Carlton, I was like, I didn't know who this guy is, but this kid was amazing. I was like, wow, the touch and everything. And, you know, I literally could talk about my college experience for I won't bore you with all that. But fast forwarding a little bit, I ended up going to California out west. I wanted
Hmm.
to take a pause from college, and I moved out to California with a friend of mine, and the school called the Musicians Institute, and that was a life changing in so many ways. Growing up. here in Rochester, New York, and Webster, New York, and then moving to Hollywood, California was
Mhm.
a serious
I'm sure.
culture shock. But it was amazing in so many ways. And I don't know if you knew this, but I happened to be at a school when this amazing teacher by the name of Norman Brown was there.
Oh, yes.
So Norman Brown he was not yet Norman Brown like we know
Right.
him. He was just when I met him, he was just a great teacher,
Hmm.
a great encourager. I found myself just hanging out with him all the time. He had, at that school we had like open counseling, which is kind of like you know, um, an office hours for musicians, right?
Right.
I would just I'll tell you a little story, which is kind of funny. So I went there. I had super long hair, and I'm like, Living Color was hot back then, Van Halen, all this stuff. I was like, oh, I just loved playing guitar, but I was just starting to get into like, like funkier, kinds of music and stuff. And so we get to California, we get to that first week of the Musicians Institute, and you start every day there was a new um, faculty member, or not a new faculty member, but a faculty concert. So, whatever. So, like the first day, I remember was like a classical player, amazing. Everyone was amazing. And Friday night, or excuse me, Thursday, no, Friday night was the final night, and everybody was building up to this thing. And it was like, all my long hair friends wanted to go out to the whiskey, to,
Right.
to the, this is like 1990,
Hmm.
right? So everybody wants to go out and there's, you know, do all that kind of thing. You know who was playing?
Ooh.
Mr. Norman Brown.
Oh my.
I was literally dumbfounded. I was like sitting there watching, and it was like literally, I was like, I never heard anything like it. And
Hmm.
it's like now, it just shows you how much I was missing back then. But everything about him, I loved. I loved his music. I loved his band. I loved his guitar playing. You could just tell he was just a great, super, just a fun guy to, whatever. So, anyways, that changed my life because while all my friends went to the whiskey and hung out on all checking out the metal bands, I at that moment was like, I want to do that. So, like, I did the best that I could to I was a very young guitar player at that
Right.
time.
Hmm.
So I spent a lot of time with Norman Brown, and an interesting story. So when that program was like a year long at the time,
Hmm.
and Norm and I became, I saw him all the time, and we became, great, student teacher friends, whatever. And when I graduated, I remember we had lunch after graduation. He goes, "I got to tell you something." I said, "What?" I go, "What?" He goes, "I just got signed to Mojazz Records," and I'm like,
Ah,
"You're kidding me?" So it was like I got to know Norman right before he became the Norman Brown
right.
I know
Right.
now, and you know, and I've seen him a few times since, and he's still just a great guy, very gracious, and it's been a long time. It's been I don't know when the last time I saw him was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but actually no, not that long ago. I saw him maybe like 5 years ago. I saw him after COVID that tour.
Yeah, he's been on the show, wonderful conversations. He told me he was going to start a podcast and I would be his fill-in.
Oh,
I'm
good.
I'm I'm still doing my show.
He's
Uh,
he's great, but I mean, when it comes to guitar playing, I have to give so much of who I am today as a musician came from just, hanging out with Norman. And I had another friend that I lived that was kind of like an older brother, mentor figure that's still a dear friend of mine up to this today. And between Norman and him, his name is Sage Ali. He lives out in You ever been to DC before?
yes, I have a
You ever
cousin
been
who
to,
lives there.
you ever been to Ben's Chili Bowl?
No.
It's a real if you ever go to DC, you got to go to Ben's Chili Bowl. It's a great like a historic restaurant. And anyways, his family owns that restaurant, and it's cool. Check it out sometime. But anyways, he really was very much focused on the kind of music that I loved, and he was older than I was.
Hmm.
That took me under his wing, and I'd learned like the technical part of stuff from Norman, how to all the playing
Right.
thing. And I would go to Tower Records and come back each night with like a handful of Earth, Wind, and Fire and the Isley Brothers and Ohio Players and you name it. I was like schooled in the old school, and that's what became my listening for, for a long
Hmm.
time was that. And that's pretty much what is kind of like my foundation as a guitar player, really is that.
So the thing that always gets me about guitar players is I I have no manual dexterity at all with my fingers.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I gotta do. I still type kind of with two fingers. Um,
Heck.
and the funny thing is, I tell a story and I think of my mom who literally could look at you, have a conversation with you, and type, and it sounded like one note. That's how fast she could type. She was that good. So everybody goes, and you can't? Ah, no, I can't. And I had typing in high school and so forth and so on. But the thing that gets me is how do you practice where to put your fingers, what strings you're supposed to do, and so forth and so on. That would be my struggle in my head of that's why I can't do this. But I can make my hands go in two different directions. I can rub my head and pat my stomach. But when it comes to fingers, I can't do that. How did you practice that? How did you become proficient in that sort of stuff?
I can answer that like two ways. One way is what, as is this kid who's just trying to learn and trying, in a world of all these amazing players. I'm like, wow, I get to learn. I want to be like this, but I want to do it by next week, right?
Hmm.
And it wasn't, you start to realize really fast that, if you're going to do this, you have to be consistent. You have to,
Hmm.
because you love it, not because it can't be a chore, because you have to spend a lot of time with your instrument.
Right.
And it's listening and it's playing. But I can explain a little bit of the technical part because I'm starting to learn even now a lot of what I do during the day. My day job is kind of help inform like, wow, how do we learn, right?
Hmm.
And you're talking about your fingers and stuff. So much of what we do, our brain, our fingers, it's that motor memory. You
Right.
learn things slowly. You have to repeat it. And you have to kind of do it as much as you can in a natural context, not just, kind of just doing it mechanically, because it never seeps into your the creative part of your mind, right?
Hmm.
Because you can get used to like doing like scale exercises and that kind of thing, but if you
Right.
don't play with actual music and try to apply it right away, it's harder to get it to stick in a musical way. So
Right.
anyway, it just takes a lot of time and doing things very slowly at first, and slowly, building up your dexterity. Whether it's and one thing like gosh, I will always talk about. I just met a friend, the other night that was just starting to play guitar, and actually it was my son's one of my son's physical therapists, and I was telling him, you got to start with the rhythm guitar. There's like certain things I can show you that if you practice, I promise you'll make gains really fast.
Hmm.
Have to get that you got to get that sense of time and that sense of feel into your into your body, into your
Right.
system. That'll be the foundation for everything
Let
else.
let's pause for a minute and take a listen to some of your work. This is going to be Kissing a Star on the Jazz Flight Podcast with Deepak. That is Kissing a Star on the Jazz Flight Podcast with our guest Deepak Thettu. Um, I want to talk about this other thing that you do, and I want to see if there's a correlation between the music and that. You are an occupational therapist. Let me frame this out. So you're playing guitar, you're learning how to play guitar, your guitar skills are going up. When does the occupational therapy come in so that you now do, say, both of them at the same time? And it is, does one, does the music help you with the occupational therapy?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty wild story how I got to the occupational therapy. It kind of I have to rewind again a little bit back to being at University of Buffalo and realizing, oh wow, I want to be a musician. Then I go off to California, right? But remember, I told you that program was only a year long.
Right.
So 21-year-old Deepak had to come back to Rochester, New York, and abide by my parents' wishes, which was getting a degree,
Right.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So, there's a lot of, thoughts behind all of that. But the short version is that my sister actually worked in Syracuse as a physiatrist. She was like a physician that worked with rehab and, like physical rehab, people that have, strokes or brain injuries, things like that. She was that kind of doctor. So I was talking to her one day and about physical therapy, and she goes, "Have you ever thought about occupational therapy?" And I was like, "No, what's that?" I had seen it, but I didn't know what it was. To make a long story short, I went in and observed the OTs that she worked with. I was like, wow, this is cool. I was like, this I think I can do. I couldn't sit in a desk and, you know, in
Right.
front of a computer all day or whatever, but OT just seemed it's a very, I love working with people. I love helping people, that part of it for sure. But there's something about OT's always focused on function, whether it's, an older patient or today, my main job for the past, gosh, 26 years has been working with children.
Hmm.
It's just helping, my clients, in this case, the kids that I work with, helping them with their main duty, which is to function in a school setting.
Hmm.
A lot of different things that can become barriers for children when they're in school settings. So I had gone through back to my sister again. So I loved it. I did, what I needed to do to get back, to get, to apply to schools, whatever, and ended up um, getting my degree in occupational therapy. And all throughout, I remember, you know, any time I had a break, I'd put everything down, pull out my guitar. I was in a couple bands actually when I was in OT school, and I remember Friday nights. Um, there was a bar downtown Utica that had jazz, and I would go and play there. I always forget about those times, but anyways, so I I ended up graduating, and my first job, which is a job that I've had ever since, has been working with at
Wow.
the occupation, in the Rochester City School District. I worked in a hospital too for a while, but working in the school district, that's been kind of my main gig as far as the OT stuff. And it's been great. To your question about how does it relate, it relates directly because OT is very, especially when you're working with children, you got to find different ways to get to them,
Hmm.
to get their attention. And I had a lot of students that were, and most of my students are very young, preschool, kindergarten, first grade. And when they get identified, they come to me, and a lot of them, some of them can't sit still. They're all over the place. Some of them are nonverbal and very, withdrawn or whatever it is. And it's a joy to kind of get to know them through where they're at. And a lot of times music is a part of that. I've had students and, you know, I wouldn't use music in the way that I do as a performer, but I've used
Right.
music to try to reach them. And a lot, especially when I first started in the district. And it's funny. It's funny that you mentioned, like, so today at work, I was joking with some of my coworkers because it was like I think we were like singing all day, and no, I will not sing on this podcast
Oh, okay. That's fine.
because you don't want to hear me sing. Um, but music is such a powerful way to get kids to pay attention and get them to, you know, um, guide them and coach them to where they need to be. But so yeah, I'm very thankful for my day job.
I
It's
and I want to because this is a very taxing day job, takes a lot out of you mentally and physically. But then again, so does the music. So I used to always get caught up in, I remember a boss of mine come to coming up to me and going, Darrell, you don't have any work-life balance.
Hmm.
And here's my response. Were we born in the same village? She looked at me like, what does that mean? I go, because in the village I was born in, we work. We work. That's what we do. Um, and I'm willing to bet that's not the same ideology that you had growing up. So I think if you are doing something that you like, and it is very obvious, your music is really good. I'm willing to bet you're a very good occupational therapist. So the thing is, how do you balance that? When does one take over and you go, I can't do this now because I got to go do this, or I got this gig to play, and that's the bigger question. If you've got gigs to play, do you work that out with the school? What do you do?
You know, it's a great question. Much of um, many of the shows that I play now are in Rochester, so
Hmm.
I try to book them, you know, on the weekends. Friday nights are a big night. Almost every Friday we're playing somewhere. Occasionally during the week, sometimes I'll have like a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, or actually Saturday morning because we play every Saturday morning too at one of the restaurants. And you know, the big thing is, I would say, uh, time is a huge factor because, between taking care of my kids and doing all the paperwork that comes with being an occupational therapist, which is
Hmm.
way too much. By the time I get a chance to have a guitar in my hand and get with the guys and get to a show, it's just such a cathartic. We're here. And even though I'm exhausted setting up and doing all these kind of things, once we start playing and you see people enjoying, especially now, it's been such a blessing over the past few years with all the radio success and all
Right,
that,
right.
getting people that actually are coming because they want to hear you play, and they want and hear the guys play and hear us play together. It's a lot of fun, and I'm trying to achieve the balance where I can keep up with the practice, the all the social media stuff is all that is.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I got
man.
this, I got to get a flyer done for this, I got to do that, all that kind of stuff, and try to, how do you do that when you've got this day job and you're trying to compete with, not compete, but you're trying to like, be on the same level as the guys that you love, that I listen to, um, on the radio all the time. But I think we're growing, I have a lot of help. I have, dear friends that support me, that help me with all the
Hmm.
stuff. And we're getting there. We're getting there. You got to come down to Rochester and check us out, or have us
I
to Cleveland.
I here's the thing. I would love to create concerts. I've talked to a whole bunch of people who say, I want to come to Cleveland. There are a lot of, I call them obstacles. Don't get me wrong, if I had $100,000, I could bring you all here because I would build a facility. Somebody told me, somebody down in Texas, Billy Ray Shepherd, um, does second Sunday jazz concerts. He says 200 people. He says, I've been doing it for 3 years now, and it's always 200 people. He goes, we don't get the same 200 people every time, but he goes, we got a system, and he's very much willing to come and help me out. Um, but it's building that nest egg, building that following to make people want to do that next thing. My podcast is doing very well, very well. I come from radio, so I'm not used to seeing results. But now I can go to and look and see how many views I have, how many subscribers I have. So you can see that. And I don't always agree with it. People are like, Joe, you're doing really well. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you think that. So it just makes me work harder. But I'd love to do that. Here are two things I'd love to do. I'd love to have you all in concert. The other thing I would love is this. I want to find an outdoor facility, kind of like the Hollywood Bowl, put you all on a stage. You're not playing. I just want to hear the stories that come from this collective group about playing the music, about the stories you have, whether or not you know people, getting to know other people, getting to know other musicians. I'm always amazed at who plays with who. How did that relationship start? How do you keep that relationship going? The relationship in talking to Judah, um, who was, and quick story, and I'll do this as fast as I can. I'm at a buddy's house. He gives me artists. He goes, "You need to check this guy out." So this is a Sunday because we're watching football. So I'm like,
Mm,
fine. So Monday is my days to send out stuff. So I send that out to Judah. Tuesday he responds. Don't get me wrong. And what I do, that's unusual to get a response that quick. Judah and I talk, and sometimes you hit it off, and he and I have. I think you and I have. It's a conversation. I have no preconceived notions. I just want to talk to you. I want to find out about you, get your music out there, make sure people know about it, make sure they can contact you. It's that kind of thing. But I'm serious. I have I went to a David Sanborn show 122 years ago, sat in the very last row, put my head up against the wall, and just listened. Had the
mm,
opportunity to go backstage, talk to David. He's like, Darrell, where were you? I go, I was in that very back row. I could show you the seat. And I'm up against the wall. He goes, why? Don't do that. I had a tough day at work. I just wanted to listen to some music. He looks at me and says, we need more people like you.
mm.
Okay, whatever. So before we continue, let me shut up. Let's do Make Me Wanna. Uh, is that the latest single you got out now?
It is. It
And,
is.
and we're gonna listen to the latest single on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. This is the Jazz Flyte Podcast. He is Deepak Thettu. That was a song called "Make Me Wanna." You, I, I, I'm very much a person of work-life balance. I've always said my, and it's generational. It's in my family. My aunts and uncles worked more than 40 hours a week. My mom worked more than 40 hours a week. I work more than 40 hours a week. I give more than 40 hours a week to this, what I'm doing, because I want to make it good. But when you have these two things that you do, when do you practice? I'm I don't know anything about an occupational therapist other than the fact that I probably need one at some point in my life. But it's I can't. What do you do to decompress? That's the other thing. You got these two things and they're pretty intense. So what do you do to decompress? Are you working out? Are you riding a bike? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, um, exercise, especially our job is so physical. Because I work with little kids that
Right.
are, you know,
Probably running around and everything.
running around and so I try to exercise as much as possible. Um, there's some parts of the year that I'm a little bit more consistent than
Hmm.
others. Like I was hinting at the we have so much paperwork in our job,
Right.
it's just, and I'm not like a great writer and I hate it so much.
Hmm.
It just takes me forever to do it. I'm getting a little better at it. And but so a lot of my practicing and a lot of my and most of my practicing these days is like writing. It's
Hmm.
not like what it was when I was younger. Most of what I do now is working on, new songs and things like that. It always happens at night before I go to bed. You know, I, it may be by the time I get home after doing all the things I need to do, it might be, between 10 and 11 o'clock.
Wow.
I'll pull out the acoustic and I'll just play until I fall asleep. And yes, I have fallen asleep with the guitar in my hand. Um, so I can't really say that the and that's why I'm glad that we play a lot. I'm very blessed. We have a regular gig every Saturday morning. We play almost every Friday. So those opportunities to play, and then other times, other shows that come up. That's kind of like what is kind of kept the mental part of playing and remembering the songs and all that kind of stuff together. And I'm working on my first CD, first full length CD,
Cool.
which is uh, God willing, we'll have it out. It'll definitely be before the summer.
Okay.
Probably, I'm guessing probably around May. We're
Okay.
almost done. There's like four tunes that need to be finished, and then all the other stuff that needs
Right.
to be done. But anyway, so that's it's yeah. And when I do have like a snow day, maybe we'll have this
Uh,
weekend. I don't know. When we have like a few extra, the best I find that my most the best playing that I have is like when I know that I've got my schoolwork done and my responsibilities are taken care of, and I can just sit, hold the guitar, and just play and not have to worry about all the things that I have to do. That's like when many songs have been written in that state of mind.
hmm
Like, oh wow, I like that. You should pull out your phone and record whatever, that kind of thing. So I look forward to those little moments. They're not as often because life is really busy right now, um, but I definitely have an acoustic guitar very close to where I am, in my apartment. And any time that, even if it's 5, 10 minutes, I'll pick it up and play. And
Is it one of those guitars that's behind you?
so the wall of guitars, not one of these. My acoustic's actually over there. But yeah, so a lot of these guitars, so a little story. A friend of mine was a guitar builder in Rochester.
Hmm.
He was actually studying to be an occupational therapist. He was so a common friend had said, "You need to meet Deepak. You have to you have to meet him." So he called me and he actually came to the school that I worked at, and for like I don't know about 2, 3 months he was working along and shadowing me, getting prepared to go to OT school. And do you think we were talking about OT? We did
No.
talk about
Well,
OT
maybe.
a little bit, but I was just fascinated about he was just a great guitar builder. And so my main guitar that I play, that you've probably maybe seen in some pictures, this one, this is the made by Mr. Ben Bruton. He's an amazing guitar builder. Almost all of these guitars were built by him. And um, that one in particular is the one that I play the most. And yeah, I love good. I just love guitar.
Uh,
Besides anything else,
who
it's instrument.
who's your favorite guitarist?
You know, I have to say Norman Brown. I have to say because he's such an influence on my life. Um, but that if I were to say, if you ask me like guitar music, guitarist, I really do love a ton of different guitar
Oh
players.
yeah.
Because I just love guitar. So, I mean, back in the day, love Mr. Edward Van Halen, of course, and all the rock guys. These days, there's like, oh my gosh, there's so many guys that are fun to listen to. There's this. Have you ever heard of Matteo Mancuso?
hmm
You
hmm
know, I saw him. That was the last guitar concert I went to in Buffalo, and what an incredible talent, just to see what he's able to do and the music that he's able to write. Um, but just all the classics. I love Larry Carlton. I love Lee Ritenour. That school, Frank Gambale, Scott Henderson. When I went to GIT, there were all these guys. Every teacher there was outstanding. Literally everyone was outstanding. And they were, I loved them all. The thing about Norman's music that really moved me is his songs, his songwriting was just incredible. I love Carlos Santana. I love, you know, um, Eric Clapton,
hmm
you know, John Mayer. I mean, there's so many, and of our genre. I
hmm
mean, how can you not love Adam Hawley, right? It's
Right.
like
Yeah.
amazing songwriter, just an amazing groove. He's fantastic.
He's another one that I go, and you have time when?
I know, right?
He's doing his what he did Jason Jackson. He's got the own record label. I just want to talk. That's all I want to do. Get information out of you guys.
Oh my
Deepak, I greatly appreciate this. Let me if our listeners want to follow what you do, what's your social media presence like?
Um, I'm on Facebook, and I spend most of my time on Facebook. From Facebook, it goes to Instagram automatically. I'm not actually. It goes to Most of my posting is on Facebook, and it moves over to Instagram.
Okay.
I have a website that if anyone is able to go and visit, it'd be great. It's DeepakThettu music, Deepak Thettu music.com. And I'm trying to like post more, make sure that all the shows are up to date and
Okay.
post more content. That I'm realizing that there's a lot of people that come to our shows that have gone to the website. I'm always
Right.
thinking that Facebook is it, right?
Right.
They come to the website and um, the first thing I go, oh, how'd you find out about us? Oh, I went to your website. They might have heard the song on
Right.
Watercolor.
Right. Okay.
Oh, but yeah,
Um,
and
when that new record is ready to come out, make sure you get it to us. We'll get it
absolutely,
out there. Even if it's just you got some singles out there, let's do it. Let Jazz Flight do some work for you.
I would
Greatly
love.
appreciate the time. This is an excellent conversation. We've had some fun. Um, you're a good dude, and the music is really good also. So,
Thank
ladies and
you.
gentlemen, thank you for listening to the Jazz Flight Podcast. If you like what we do, the conversations that we have, including this one, at the end of the show, there's a button called subscribe. I need you all to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. This way, whenever we come out with a different artist or anything like that, you'll be the first to know. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Deepak, once again, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. We will be in touch and keep doing what you're doing with the music and the occupational therapy because each one is important. Thank you for listening to the Jazz Flight Podcast. This is Darrell Scott. I greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flight Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Darrell Scott.